it harmed me and it harmed some of the relationships that I didn't want to hurt. Three people making decisions, and where I made a mistake was all three of us were visionaries. And I will be the first to admit, I was not comfortable having those tough conversations when I first started. What's up, dog? So we back again, another episode of the documentary. We just talked about how the steps I needed to take to become just a badass closer. Because that's what I wanted. I knew I wanted to be a closer. So those are the steps that I took. Now, there were some things I told you guys, I made a lot of mistakes starting off, such as partnerships. I jumped into partnerships very fast when I first got started, and it harmed me and it harmed some of the relationships that I didn't want to hurt. The first thing I did wrong was the way I chose my partners. So I had a cousin who was a real estate agent, and he was moving to Baltimore. He lived in California. He was actually moving to Baltimore, and I was in Laurel, Maryland, which is 30 minutes from Baltimore at the time. And I had a buddy that I went to college with who seen what I was doing. I told him that I was wholesaling. He seen, that I was putting video. I was doing light content. I was posting videos of me walking through properties and all that good stuff. And he seen what I was doing and was interested. Now, he's more on computers. He worked IT, so I'm automatically thinking that this guy can work behind the scenes for me. He can be what's called an integrator. My integrator is somebody who generates leads for you, right? This person, me as a visionary, I have the vision where I see everything. And this is what we want to do. I want to do this, and that. And then my integrator is a person who makes it happen on the back end. So I had an idea that this guy can be a good integrator. Now I had two partners, which is really tough. First of all, three people making decisions, and where I made a mistake was all three of us were visionaries. So my cousin David, he was the realtor. He was also a visionary. We had him doing a lot of the dispo. Now Edward, my boy, who was the integrator, he was doing the lead management. Now, mistake number one that I made was choosing them because we're friends. I chose them because we're all cool, and I figured that we had good chemistry as friends. We'd be good partners. No, that's not how things work at all. I've had better partnerships with people that I've just met than partnerships with people that I've known my whole life, because there's a lot of tough conversations that need to be had, and if your friendship is not at a point where you can have those tough conversations, or if you're just not comfortable having those tough conversations, things can go left. And I will be the first to admit, I was not comfortable having those tough conversations when I first started. I even told Ed the one day when we met up after the partnership had broken up. We'd met up a few months after, and I told him, like, bro, I'm sorry, I was a bitch. Like I ended the partnership in a bitch ass way, like the way that I did it. So we'll talk about that. But the first mistake that I made was choosing them based on our friendship. You don't want to choose a partner based on just your previous experience. You want to choose a partner based on, can they get the job done that you need, right? Is this person, can you relate? Can you have chemistry with this person to where you guys have the same vision? You guys want to do the same things. You guys want to accomplish the same goals, help the same amount of people, right? That should be your partner, somebody you align with on that side. I've never even talked about the goals with these guys. I just thought that since we were cool, that we could have a good partnership together. That was not the case. So one thing that I would have done that I do now in all my partnerships before I start them is, it's called an upfront contract. We also do this in sales when talking to sellers, but my upfront contract is laying out all the responsibilities. This is what I'm gonna do, and this is what you're gonna do. Now, when somebody isn't doing that, you can go back to that upfront contract and even have this on paper, right? It's called an org chart, an organizational chart. You have all of this on paper saying that your responsibilities are this, your responsibilities are this. If somebody's not doing their job, you revert to that org chart, and you have this conversation, right? So if leads aren't being generated, that's your problem. If deals aren't being closed, that's my problem. If deals aren't being sold, that's your problem, right? And we did a bad job of having that conversation in the beginning, and we got into a lot of arguments, right? And me personally, I was feeling some type of way. It was a lot of resentment on my side. Like, I ended up missing meetings on purpose, because if I was on the phone with them, I knew that our relationship as friends would be over, because I know myself, right? And we would have been arguing, and it'd have been a lot, right? So we didn't have those conversations up front. And what it led to was I felt like I was doing all the work. So when you get a deal, right? Say this one was the last straw. We closed the deal, and we generated the lead from JV, right? Joint venturing. So another wholesaler brought the lead to me because they knew that I could close deals, so they wanted my help. So that's how we got the lead. So number one, my integrator partner, he didn't do that, right? So he's still gonna get paid for that, but he didn't do that. It came from my marketing. Number two, I closed the deal, right? And then we found our buyer from another relationship that I brought to the table. So we did all that, and I probably walked away with like $1,500. And it was a $10,000 assignment fee. I barely walked away with anything. And I was like, man, there's gotta be a better way. Like, this just isn't working. And I told them that, like, we can't keep doing this partnership, right? So I actually ended it through a text. That was the bitch ass stuff that I was talking about, right? I ended it through a text. I sent a really long text message in the group and pretty much just said, I'm out. And I didn't have a conversation with them, nothing, right? So that was soft. That wasn't me being a dog. That was me being a pup. And this is my personal opinion, right? It is really hard to have 3 partners as it is. So probably what we could have done was we could have said all the JV deals, if I end up getting the lead, if I end up generating the lead, or if I end up selling the deal, then I get the full commission, but that's not how partnerships work. You have to be able to rely on that person to do their job, or I'm going to be stepping on my own feet, right? Because what's the point at that moment, right? If I'm going to continue to generate leads, if my job is to close deals, but if I'm still generating leads because I don't trust you to get it done, or if I'm closing deals because I don't trust you to get it done, and I think that you're going to mess up and I want this deal to close, you might as well just cut ties, right? So I just think we just weren't a good fit. I think the mistake, what I would have done to change it, is have an upfront contract and say, this is what we do, and have it all on paper. Right. So now when somebody's not doing what they're supposed to do, and that's another thing, track KPIs, right? Because if you're not tracking the KPIs and you don't know exactly what's going on in your business, you don't know who to have a conversation with, right? So if you don't know how many leads you're generating, you can't go talk to your integrator about how many leads you're generating because you just don't know, right? So 1, have everything on paper, and then 2, KPIs, track your KPIs and be able to know exactly where you're at. If you don't know your KPIs, you don't have KPIs, you don't have a business. What I learned from that last partnership is, and what I do now moving forward, is I have those tough agreements, right? I have the tough conversations. So I have the tough conversations first, right? So we have the upfront agreement saying, 1, we're doing a dating period. So we don't just jump into bed with each other. We go on a couple of dates first. So we take about maybe 3 to 6 months of us just seeing how this works. There's going to be a JV agreement for every deal that we close. I'm going to do what I do best. You do what you do best. And let's go on a couple of dates and see if this works. That's the very first thing, right? We come together and we would talk about our goals. Number 1, right? See if our goals align. We would also track, we would also talk about what our jobs are, what our duties are, and how we're going to hold each other accountable to getting this done. All right. So have these upfront contracts so when if something's going on during these 3 to 6 months, you have the choice, right? Because now we're dating, right? We're not actually in a LLC together. I have the choice to either move forward with you or say, hey, I don't like the way you're doing this. Let's switch it up. And let's go about it this way. Then if they switch it up and it still doesn't work, then you can move forward and do your own thing, right? So I would say, number 1, have a dating phase. I would say have a dating period to where you guys are just testing this out. 2, then put everything on paper, like everybody's responsibilities, everybody's jobs, and then come up with a way to track it. And if you can't have these conversations up front, then you probably shouldn't be in a partnership at all, And then if you are going to leave that partnership, have a conversation. Have an actual conversation and not a text. That's That's not how business operate. If you guys started off on the phone, ended on the phone as well, and have that conversation, it's a lot less scary than you think, right? I had another partner that we had broke up. Is in between where I'm at now and these original partners. We had to, when we broke up, we had a conversation about it, and I was dreading the conversation. I didn't want to talk about it. I started to feel that same feeling of that resentment where he would call me and I wouldn't want to get on the calls, and I'm just like, man, I don't need to do this. Right? I start having those thoughts, and I'm just like, I need to just have this conversation with him. So we had the conversation, and he's like, okay, cool. He's like, well, I appreciate you for having this conversation with me and telling me like a man, right? Like, I agree, things fell off a little bit. It's not where we originally thought it was gonna go. Maybe this doesn't work, but I would love to continue to do deals together. And we're still doing deals together, right? He's like, he actually told me, he said, you know, this wholesaling thing isn't really for me anyways. I don't have much time. I would rather do fix and flips anyways. So how about you keep all the leads? And if you get anything that we got, then just sell it to me. And I'm like, wow, that's a great idea. Let's do it. You know, so just have the conversation. It's a lot less scary than you think. So those are the two things. Maybe a partnership isn't for you right now, right? So what I did was, right now I outsource my partner. I outsource everything, right? So I have somebody who I know I needed to generate leads. So I'm like, hey, if you generate leads, why don't you generate leads? And it's kind of like a dating period, but I'm like, why don't you generate leads and we close them and let's just 50-50. So I just outsource that, right? Or you can pay somebody to generate leads. You know, so a partnership may not be for you, but if you find yourself in a position where you're about to get into a partnership, I recommend you do those things. You have the conversation first, have that upfront contract, and make sure everybody's on the same page. Everybody's goals are aligned. Everybody has the same vision. Everybody understands their roles and their responsibilities. I also think don't just rush into a partnership because you're friends with these people or they're cool, or you guys are family, or they're funny or good looking. I think that's a terrible way to start a partnership or reason to get into a partnership. So if you made it this far, if you are here today and you've watched every single video of the documentary so far, first of all, give yourself a pat on the back, because you, my friend, are a dog. You did that shit. There's enough information in there, enough value in there for you to get your first deal. So why are you not taking action? Reach out to me personally, or reach out to the people in the comments. Tell people where you're at, how you can help them, and start taking action. And if you have made it here so far, then you already know what to do. Like this video, comment, subscribe, hit the bell. Tell 5 more friends what they're missing. Tell them to join the Dog Pound, join the community, and let's rock, baby.
I'm in a whip, so I gotta zoom. They tryna talk, they not in the room. I've been so real, I'm dead to the tomb. They in the way,